This is Jacob Tutor here, and I am doing a walkthrough of my game Shear Chaos. Take a look at the credits here. I broke it down by section from code, art, special thanks, and it's kind of a breakdown of where I got everything for the game. I also put a little disclaimer down here in the corner saying that no sheep were harmed in the making of this game. All of my signs, as you can see when I hover over them, they kind of change. Instructions, I tried to limit it to all one page instead of multiple pages that you have to click through. Just a general rundown so that if people have played the game before, they can hop right back into the mix. And then the sprites kind of say what's coming. I did these little previews before every level, and it just shows what is coming. So the ice level, the hell level, and there are little borders around the edge that show red if you've beaten it. And as we'll see in a minute, they turn gold when you've completed them. So my inspiration for this game was quite a few different types of roguelikes. Blazing Beaks, Son of a Witch, Galaxy Champions TV. There were quite a few different inspirations that I had to make this game. And so this, I would say, is the most akin to Galaxy Champions TV, but it's still pretty different in that regard. In that all the enemies don't chase you and enemies don't fire back. It's entirely movement based, and there is no dash mechanic, which is something that I wanted to add to the game, but just didn't have the opportunity. So as you can see on death, we have a load screen. I try to put particle effects on most of the levels, and from here you can hop right back into the game, or you can go to the credits if you're calling it quits. So again, it takes you right here instead of loading you back in, so you get a split second, so you're not just clicking and hopping right back in, and now you have the opportunity to start over. So on hit, there is an iframe window. It's a little bit long of a window, but since the rest of the game is kind of brutal in difficulty, I figured I could get away with this, and it kind of helped balance the game out overall, rather than changing so many different other aspects like move speed, fire speed, reload speed, and all those other tangibles. The window just gives you an opportunity to escape once you've got a bunch of sheep on you, and also it prevents getting double hit, because a lot of times you run into two sheep at once, and without programming the iframes, you would lose 2 lives in that hit. So as you can see, once you do beat a level, you get the gold ring around it, as well as a check mark. And then the title of the level now tells you, what the level's about and what you can expect from the level. So slippery movement on ice and less effective power-ups. The less effective power-ups are because if you increase the movement speed too much, it's really, really difficult to move around on this ice. And I didn't want to change the drop percentage of the power-ups because I felt like it made for more interesting gameplay, where you kind of had to make a gut call whether it was worth it to go after that power-up or not. And so I felt like just making them a little bit less effective, keeping the drop rate practically the same, would balance the game out a little bit better. We do have some snow particle effects, and I tried to add some snow effects to like the trees and on top of the houses and stuff, just to make it feel a little more lived in and a little more realistic. The icy movement on this level can be difficult, but it's not that hard, and hell is where the difficulty really kicks in. So as you can see, enemies move faster. There's 75 enemies now instead of 50, and it's a little bit harder to see specifically the black sheep, which move very quickly in this level, and that all those factors combined make for a difficult level. So part of it being a roguelike and inspired by the games that I mentioned beforehand is there is no score system, as you may have noticed. It is purely survive the wave based. Some of the other games do feature score systems, but for me, I just wanted this game to be very difficult to beat. In fact, I've played this game a whole lot, and I've really only beaten it probably 3 or 4 times as of the recording of this video. So it's not a game that you can pick up just once and expect to win. And so as you can see, this was not scripted for me to die here. I wanted to die in the first level to show what the death screen looked like, but that death was not intentional. So as far as Easter eggs go, as we voice over another run through here, as far as Easter eggs go, there is one Easter egg in the game, and it's that in every single level there is a hidden power up behind the trees, and I believe at some point I show that off here in this video. It's behind a different tree in every level, and it's just there as a means to kind of explore and also to show off the layer difference. So the trees, the collision is programmed only around the base of the trees. The trees are set to the foreground sorting layer so that you get that dynamic movement behind the tree. It just kind of makes it stand out a little bit more. All right, so we're gonna cover a couple of the prompts here as we go through this next run through. Does my end product match what I initially planned to make? Yes and no. So the original idea for this concept was a little bit more chaotic in a sort of way. I planned for there to just be hordes of sheep, like probably 4 times or so the amount of sheep that I currently have spawning. And I planned for the shots to pierce through the sheep. So it was more so about, especially with the white sheep and how they follow you, lining them up in a way that you could kill multiple enemies with one shot, clear out a herd of them, and then get a quick reload in and kind of repeat the process. I ran into a couple of issues doing that, and I decided that it would be a little more fun, I thought, especially like spawning death particle effects and things of that nature. It would just be a little bit more doable and a little bit more fun if I turned it into a projectile-based system where on hit, on collision, certain things happen. So I am happy with the way that it turned out in this way for sure. Some of my earlier prototypes where I was trying to build out the game the way that I had initially planned didn't go as smoothly as I thought, and I feel like this is just a much more fun way to play the game. I did make a fair amount of the assets, and I did download and or modify other assets that I found as well. So the character is a modified version of a sprite pack. So it was like these different pieces, the hat, the clothes and such. You are able to piece those together however you want, and then I rigged it with skeletal animation. And so that's kind of where you get like those weird floppy arms, especially when you run down. And I'm actually, for starting this project, I was not very keen on the animation, and I didn't think that it would turn out very well. So I looked up different ways, different than sprite-based animation, because I would have done a lot in Photoshop, and I tried to do as much of this project in Unity as I could. I did do a lot in Photoshop and FL Studio and a couple of other programs as well. So I didn't do it all in Unity, but I tried to do as much as I could within the program, and I didn't want to have to make so many sprites and then play those sequentially. So I like the way the skeletal rig came out and the way the hands flop around, and it makes it look very animated and kind of chaotic, which is what I was going for. Which also kind of ties into what I'm most proud of. I'm just proud that it came out to be, in my opinion, an extremely fun game. When I recorded this video that I'm currently voicing over, I actually shouted out loud when I won the game. It was a pretty big deal, and it was my first time since I finally got my end screen, or my victory screen, looking the way that I wanted it. I was very, very pleased with the way that it turned out, and so I was very excited that I actually beat the game. So since its inspiration comes from those games that are so difficult to beat, it's a very big dopamine hit when you finally beat it. So I think I spent roughly an hour today playing this game, not counting the tweaks and stuff. Since I tweaked it and made it just slightly more doable, it probably took about 20 to 30 minutes or so. But I think it's a game that you can sink a little bit of time into and have fun most of the way through. I tried to really just make the gameplay as fun as I could. So there was a lot of balance that went into the game, and just tweaking all the numbers and seeing what felt like the most fun way to play. And there's one of those sprites behind the tree that I was talking about, just to kind of point that out. What went wrong or haywire? So I actually had a ton of issues with this build. So the animation was a huge one for me. I had, and actually just the entire projectile firing system as a whole. So at first, like I tried to do it as a raycast, and I just didn't like the way that it felt. Wasn't a fan of that particular. It just didn't feel like a good fit for what I was trying to go for. And so when I switched to a particle, or rather a projectile system, it took a lot. Initially, I had the entire character spinning on their back because I could not, for the life of me, get a game object to work as a firing point, that firing point would rotate. And eventually I got it. I honestly don't even remember quite exactly what it was that I changed that finally got it to work, but it took days. I think I spent 4 total days complete, and I mean like 8+ hour days, just working on the projectile system. And for 2 of those days, absolutely, I ended in a net negative. Either nothing changed at all, and I just didn't make any progress, or I actually went backwards. Like maybe one thing worked, and then 2 more things got broken because of that. So that went very haywire. The animation went kind of crazy. As far my UI kept deleting itself randomly. The elements would still be there. So like, but there was just nothing visible. Period. So that was extremely frustrating. To expand my game, I would add more levels. A dash mechanic is something that I want to implement if I had more time, and just general tweaks for the game in general. I don't think it's like a full release yet. I wouldn't like publish this, but I have kicked the idea around of spending a little more time and fleshing this game out a little more. And if I did, the first thing I would do would be add some more levels and also some gameplay. So now that we're coming into what I believe is my final run in Hell, quick things to point out here. I turned up the bloom and post-processing. This is just the same grass with like a little red filter over the top of it on the actual sprite itself, and then some post-processing effects as well. And then I really wanted to lean into the idea of like demon sheep, and so that's why rather than the standard blood particles you see in the other levels, they have the purple aura coming out from them. And that's something in the main game that I play Paladins. Purple is kind of like the abyssal color, like everything from Hell has that same type of color to it. And so I felt like it was a pretty good fit for this theme. I would also quickly, to expand my game, change the timer to include, instead of just a 10-second warning, to include the actual countdown. Then for my win screen, this was where the actual yell came out. I was very excited with the way my particle effects came. I think it looks like confetti. I think it looks pretty cool. And it gives the opportunity for the player to hop into the credits, or again, if you're really feeling the itch and you want to hop back into the game, you can do that as well, just restart. And so overall, I'm extremely happy with how this project went, and I am glad that I put in the amount of time that I did. I at points thought that I was working too hard on it and didn't see the point, but I'm very pleased with the final result. So thank you guys for checking it out.